Hello, I'm Robin Simmen, landscape designer and environmental educator, and I'd like to welcome you to the North Fork Audubon Red House at Inlet County Park in Greenport, New York. It's May 18th, 2020, and I've been asked to talk about why we should choose native plants for landscaping. No place illustrates this better than the rain garden planted at the Red House in October 2017, which you can see over on the left. So let me give you a little history about why this garden was designed to showcase plants native to Long Island, and then give you a virtual tour of the rain garden. Over on the right, you can see how the rain garden used to look, just barren lawn that ran right up to the front of the Red House. Most people are unaware that until the late 19th century, American houses had no lawns. Instead, people had yards. Lumber yards, laundry yards, barnyards, vegetable gardens, all purposeful places for doing daily chores to support home life. In fact, we still refer to the areas around our houses as the yard. So what changed our approach to landscaping from this beautiful native flora to this? The advent of two famous urban cemeteries had an influence: Greenwood Cemetery in Brooklyn and Mount Auburn Cemetery in Boston. People flocked to these marvelous necropolises to visit dead relatives and enjoy the extraordinary parks in which they were buried. Around the same time, wealthy Americans began to build mansions surrounded by grass, just like the baronial estates in England. As people moved from cities and farms into suburban living, the idea that every man's home was his castle led to imitating the way these estates and cemeteries were landscaped. And thus the great American lawn was born. Not a natural feature of North American flora at all, but a cultural statement that one had arrived. I used to drive past the Red House daily on my way to work at Cornell Cooperative Extension. And seeing this lawn, I would think, you know what? That gentle slope would be a perfect place to create habitat for birds by planting a rain garden, because water rolls downhill. We could use it off the top of the rooftop and channel it to irrigate a garden planted in front of the house. So I proposed this idea to North Fork Audubon County Parks, and I got the go-ahead to do it. 3 springs later, this is now what that front area looks like, all planted with native plants which are just emerging from their winter habitat. So here's how we made the garden. The first step was to calculate how much rainwater could be channeled off of this roof. As you see, there are several levels of roof, and we wanted to understand how much rain would come off of it during a 1-inch rainfall. You can see the fact sheet, Creating a Rain Garden, for more specifics about this and other logistics. That let me figure out how large the garden could be. In this case, it's about 600 square feet. It's a pretty big garden. Then, working with 10 Cornell Master Gardeners, we dug out the gentle slope, about a 2% grade, to create a shallow bowl that is no more than 8 inches deep in its very center. And that is the place where all the water from the roof coming down through the downspouts and channeled into the garden is now able to collect and percolate into the earth. But meanwhile, it's irrigating all of those plants on its way. So we used the soil that we scooped out to build these berms. These are like the lips on the downhill side of the shallow bowl that the rain garden actually is. And then we buried 2 perforated pipes coming off of the storm pipes to distribute water throughout the garden. Over here in the corner, you can see where one of those pipes connects to the gutter downspout. And then it's semi-buried because we wanted people to actually be able to see those pipes and understand that that's how the water is moving through the garden. And there are little holes on the bottoms of those black pipes which are allowing the water to seep out and spread all throughout the garden on its way downhill into the center. So the very wettest part of the garden is right here. And the water that isn't absorbed into the soil just gushes out into this area. And then this is the wettest part of the garden. Here you see two beautiful iris versicolors, which are about to burst into bloom. Really a fabulous thing to come see if you have a chance. By planting these perennials in October, they had a long, wet fall and winter to grow strong roots before facing their first summer hot season, which is a good planting strategy when you're working with very limited irrigation. And after they were planted, every single plant in this garden has received no additional irrigation other than the water coming off of the roof. So this is truly a garden that is irrigated by the rain. All of the natives I chose are deer resistant, and they enjoy what we call a drought and drench lifestyle. So planting natives is really a no-brainer in terms of creating a water-wise landscape, because they evolved locally to survive with just the right amount of precipitation nature is providing. This big meadowsweet is just doing great. And back there you can see the beautiful red chokeberry, Aronia arbustifolia, already flowering. Really a beautiful plant. Now, it is deer resistant, but like all plants, occasionally they get munched. And that plant was foraged pretty heavily the first year or two, but it has come back and eventually will become a beautiful hedge of flowering white glory in the springtime. You have to think about how the garden's going to look in the future when you plant it. So there are going to be a lot of empty areas which allow the plants to continue to grow and fill out. For example, over here we've got a bunch of Clethra alnifolia, which are going to become quite large, 5 to 6 feet tall, and really fill this whole area out. Here you see a Turk's cap lily, which will also be attaining some height and really looking beautiful with its blooms very soon. And back in the corner you see one of my favorites, that yellow golden Alexander, already in bloom. So native plants evolved to survive with just the amount of water that nature provides them, and they also co-evolved with all of the insects, birds, and animals that depend on them for food and for habitat. Unlike the non-native exotic plants typically sold in most garden centers, native plants are meant to have caterpillars munch on them and bees pollinate them, while the birds eat their berries and nectar, and as well as all of the insects that the plants support. And native plants require no fertilizers or pesticides to flourish. Being chemical-free, they are healthier and safer for humans to live around too. So growing them doesn't contribute to the terrible nitrogen fertilizer pollution that's destroying our marine environments. Let's take a closer look at some of these lovely plants just emerging now. One of my favorite is a very small plant. And it's a very drought-tolerant plant, which is marvelous because we needed something for these berms. And that is this beautiful Phlox subulata. What a little jewel, right? This tiny plant actually supports a tremendous number of birds, including, I have a list right here, cardinals, grosbeaks, chickadees, titmice, crows, jays, hummingbirds, mockingbirds, thrashers, nuthatches, orioles, sparrows, thrushes, vireos, wood warblers, and waxwings. Phew! You know, that's a lot of birds for a little plant to help. And another plant that I think most of you are probably familiar with is the Asclepias tuberosa, or the butterfly weed. It's also very drought tolerant. and thus planted on the sunny berm over here. Here it is, just poking up, looking rather regal already. And this plant is the sole source of food, or the milkweed family anyway, for the monarch caterpillar. But in addition to supporting monarchs, which we're aware of, it also supports all of those birds that I just read, as well as finches. So what a powerhouse, right? And an incredible burst of orange in the fall garden. Now this Pennsylvania sedge might look a little bit like a mop head to you, but again, very, very drought tolerant and a good plant to hold the berm together and really keep it from eroding. But more important, the birds absolutely love it. All of those dry grasses that are slowly sifting away in the wind are being used by the birds for nesting material. And also ground birds really, really love its habitat. So all of the plants that you see in this garden are listed on the Audubon Native Plant Database according to zip code. So you can actually take a look at your very own zip code and see what plants are going to be best for supporting the birds in your neighborhood. Here's the Joe Pye. Oh, I love Joe Pye. And again, just coming up, it's going to become 6 to 7 feet tall, really a gorgeous plant with big purple flowers. And over on the other berm, you see a bunch of Panicum virgatum, the switchgrass, which is just beginning to send out green shoots. Native plants are very smart. They don't start growing until it gets warm enough for them. So sometimes in the early spring, you think, oh my goodness, what happened? They didn't make it. They did make it. They're just taking their time. And then there's a burst of energy before they come shooting up into the sky. Like this beautiful Opuntia humifosa over here, our native prickly pear cactus with a phlox in front of it. It's perked up, it's got all kinds of buds on it, and it's going to be covered with gorgeous yellow flowers just in a couple weeks. So bottom line is, you might call this rain garden a bird yard, or maybe a butterfly and bee yard, since this place is really buzzing when more flowers bloom. I hope that you'll stop by and take a look at it then. All of the plants here are labeled, so if you see some natives that you really like, you can write down the names and go home and try growing them yourself. They're so easy to grow. They require sunshine, water, that's about it. And if you do that and replace some of the lawn at your house with native plants, I guarantee you the birds and the bees will thank you very, very much. So, happy growing season.